version 6.1, MyWorkDrive is pleased to bring a frequently requested feature to the MapDrive clients for both Mac and PC. Our DLP, or Data Leak Prevention, features have been a part of the web client for a long time. In version 6, we added them to the mobile client. In 6.1, we're introducing them to the MapDrive clients. They'll have the same limitations and experience that you're used to with the web client, removing the clipboard, removing the ability to copy and paste, preventing users from accessing files without watermarking them, and allowing you to edit in Office 365 if you're using that as what you have in the web client. Let's take a look at how that works. Familiar MapDrive client from MyWorkDrive. In this case, we're going to log in as Samantha, who in our example is a member of the accounting team. My login today is using SSO, but of course we support traditional username and password, ADFS. This SSO happens to be Azure AD. Just log in as Samantha. Of course, if you're using pre-authorization or conditional access policies, why all of that is supported. Some of that we added in version 6 continues to be available in 6.1. You'll notice that, again, I've mounted drive letters just as we always have. In this case, we're pushing drive letters. If you're using a stacked environment where you're putting everything on a single drive letter like W, it all works just fine the same way. What you'll notice that's new is this up here in Devices and Drivers, the MyWorkDrive restricted view, and that's our DLP view. We'll use that here in a moment when we look into some of these shares. Now, Samantha is a member of accounting, so she has full access to the accounting folder. If she wants to view a file, that'll go ahead and open up right in Desktop Office. Can make changes to this, save, just as you always have. That functionality is unchanged. Same ability to use the right-click method with cut, delete, rename, share, all of those features. Drag and drop, of course. Drag to my desktop. If I need to put a file back on the server, why I can. Complete with overwriting in this case. This file already exists. No problem. We'll overwrite it. All of that functionality as it were. Now, if I step back and I look at a restricted share, a DLP share, when I click into this, it's going to tell me that this share is restricted. Now, of course, I can click on it, and what that's going to do is it's going to take me into that special view that is DLP. First off, looks very normal, right? Same sort of view, files, icons, date, time, sort, all of the functionality you're used to, except the right-click menu is significantly constrained. I've got some views here from Windows, but I don't have cut, copy, paste. If I select a particular file to do that to, I can share it with a coworker. I can save a copy of it if I'm working with a template, but I can't delete it. I can't rename it. I can't make changes to it outside of the limitations that we allow, which is if you have Office 365 enabled, when I double-click a file, instead of going to my local office where I'd have the clipboard and the ability to interact with the file system, I'm taking to Office 365, and I have a limitation of Office 365 in this functionality. Now I can't cut, copy, paste, those things. Of course, my default view is view only. If I go to edit, it will authenticate me with Office 365, and then it will allow me to make changes. Those changes, as you note at the top of the screen, they're being saved back to Office 365 immediately, which go right back to the file server, just as they always have from the web client. We've just now extended that functionality to the desktop. Let's say you don't have Office 365 and you just want to give users the ability to view files in our viewer. Our viewer supports something 50 to 60 different file types, all the common ones. PDFs, documents, images, all of the Office files, text files. So when I double click that, again, I'm taken to the web. I'm put into the DLP viewer. Now I'm watermarked with my date time, with the confidential flag. I'll show you at the end of the video how to set all this up in the MyWorkDrive server, because you control these elements, if they display or not, what exactly the flag is, that sort of thing. One more thing to mention before we step over to the Mac OS and take a look at the functionality there And that is, as I showed you earlier, in the traditional view, you can drag and drop to and from this folder. Well, in the DLP view, we've disabled that. When I try to drag this off, you'll see where I get that red, you can't do this functionality, and nothing happens. Likewise, if I try to put something on this share, you'll see that red strike through. I can't drag and drop from this folder. That functionality is disabled. The only way to operate with these files is either through Office 365 or the DLP viewer. No other access to the files, even though they look like they're just a native part of Windows. So now let's step over to the Mac and take a look at how this whole functionality works on the Mac OS. The DLP functionality exists on the Mac OS client as well, and similarly seamlessly integrated. If we run MyWorkDrive, we'll again log in as Samantha. Of course, in Finder we don't use drive letters; they mount to volumes instead, and we've, as we always have, stacked all of our volumes inside of the Finder window. So you see those same shares, accounting, which Samantha has full access to, and of course her home folder, as well as the finance and projects folders, which are DLP shares. If we click into accounting, again, just like we saw with the Windows MapDrive client, we have full access to all of these files. We can open this, it will open in preview, and there's our manual. Now, if we step back and go to one of the DLP shares, like we looked at finance earlier, this again, much like on the Windows client, is going to open a new window. You'll see that we have the restricted notation on this, indicating that this is a secure access share. If I double click on an Office document, this server has Office 365 enabled. So again, I am redirected over to the browser and logged right into Office 365. Of course, we've disabled the clipboard, copy paste, all of that functionality. If I was to open another file, like we opened the text file earlier, it passes over to our browser. Again, you see the watermarking, identical functionality to the Windows client. Now, why don't we step over and take a look briefly at the server side. I'll show you the new changes in 6.1 and how to configure this. And here we are back on the server. Like the MapDrive client, there's a 6.1 version of the server. They work together. The client functionality requires features in the server, which I'm going to show you now. No changes to our login process. Again, any domain admin who has access to the MyWorkDrive server desktop can log in. Let me start by pointing out that DLP is globally enabled here in the Enterprise tab. With this radio button, by default it's turned off, so you would turn it on. Please note that this, as noted in this blue box, if you enable DLP functionality, it does require the version 6.1 MapDrive client. So that's not turning this on here. That's enabling it on the actual shares. I'll show you how that works here in just a moment. So if you do have DLP fully enabled, so the clients can use DLP, you do have to use the 6.1 MapDrive client. As I mentioned, you can adjust the watermark, whether it displays. There's some global settings you generally don't need to set, but if you need to, you can take a look at them there. The bulk of the changes, and that is all unchanged. The functionality over there in Enterprise and enabling it is unchanged. The bulk of the changes are on the shares themselves. If we take a look at that accounting share, which everyone had full access to, you'll notice download is enabled. We're using, in this case, Office Online. And all users have full access to everything, so there is no DLP on this share, which is what you saw. Samantha had full access to that share. But if we take a look at the finance share, which did have DLP applied to it, what you'll see is download is disabled. That disables the clipboard, that disables copy and paste, that disables all of that leak potential, basically removes it. And you'll see again, we have access, the ability to control access in here by group, and even down to the user level. We don't generally recommend user, but you can do that. So if you were to have turned download on, you can selectively apply this to specific groups. Now, of course, we don't want domain users to have the ability to download. We want them to have DLP, so that remains unchecked. But we may want to give it to administrators. Although we don't recommend individual users, we may want to give it to this individual user. So now different groups within this share have different experiences on their MapDrive clients. Domain users, the Samantha example, would have DLP, would not be able to download. Administrators would be able to download. Scott, as a user, would be able to download. Where this differs from 6.0, this granular permission functionality existed in 6.0, and what's new in 6.1 is the ability to enable the MapDrive client. So if you upgrade your server from 6.0 to 6.1, this will all be blank because that was our default functionality in 6.0. With DLP enabled, that turned off, the MapDrive client was disabled. Now you can turn that on. This is where, when you do that, you're requiring the 6.1 client. When you save this, you'll actually get a message here in yellow that notes that you've required the 6.1 client. So those are the changes, bringing the DLP functionality to the MapDrive clients. As always, questions, comments, concerns, support at myworkdrive.com or myworkdrive.com/support. If you want to browse our articles, submit a case, have any questions or concerns.